Sports cars are dying. Not because enthusiasts stopped loving them, but because the companies building them did. But there is one man who refuses to let that happen. Akio Toyoda, the president of Toyota, decided that if nobody else would fight for the joy of driving, then he would. And somehow, the same company that makes Camrys and RAV4s became the loudest voice keeping car culture alive. Because Akio Toyoda didn't just build cars, he rebuilt the entire philosophy behind building them. And he did so with 4 key factors that turned the world's most sensible car company into the last brand still building cars for drivers. Which brings me to the first key: no more boring cars. Akio first said it publicly in 2017, but it was a phrase that existed in his mind for much longer than that. Even long before he became president of Toyota in 2009. This was something he had been thinking about since the 90s. Now imagine this: you're Akio Toyoda. The company with your family name is no longer run by your family. 1995 saw Akio's uncle Tatsuro Toyoda retire, and Hiroshi Okuda became the new president. And Okuda's focus was on one thing: hybrids. The Prius was the first major step in the new Toyota philosophy of efficiency over everything. And honestly, that philosophy kinda made sense. There was a newfound global push to become more energy efficient and environmentally friendly, so for Toyota, innovating here was the best path forward for the company, but it also meant that this was the start of the most boring era of Toyota ever. Just look at these things. Absolutely soul-sucking. But if you were around in the early 90s, then you remember, Toyota was on a totally different trend back then. You could buy a Corolla Shore, or you could get a Celica in all its GT4 rally glory, or a mid-engined rocket ship with the MR2 turbo, and of course, we can't forget the mighty Mark IV Toyota Supra. A car that didn't actually sell well at the time, but would go on to become Toyota's biggest marketing asset in their entire history. The Toyota lineup back then had a level of F it, why not to it that made it feel so appealing. And the common factor with all of those cars, they were developed when the Toyota family sat in the big chair at Toyota HQ. And at a time when Japanese manufacturers as a whole were taking risks and having fun. Honda's Type Rs, Mitsubishi's Evos, Nissan's Fairlady Z, and GTR and Silvia. But as we approached Y2K, each one of those cars would either be axed or neutered, one by one. And in Toyota's case, it was all in the efforts to make Toyota the new home for efficiency. Now, Akio Toyoda worked at the company during that era, but while he may have been the next family member that would become president, he was no crown prince. Akio worked his butt off and put in his licks at the company. He joined in 1984 and worked in nearly every aspect of the business: manufacturing, marketing, product development. Akio was learning every in and out of how to grow a car manufacturing business, and in 1998, he was sent to the US to oversee the NUMMI plant in California, a joint manufacturing venture between Toyota and GM. Yes, the very same place where the legendary Geo Prism was being built. And it was here that Akio got to see well and truly the disparity between Toyota's new efficiency ideology and the carefree fun of the American car makers. The C5 Corvette, the SVT Cobra, the Viper, for Pete's sake. These were cars that were almost unfathomable to the new Toyota way. Cars that were focused on driver enjoyment over basically everything, even profitability sometimes. Sure, it was an ideology that ended with the entire American car industry shitting the bed in 2008, but it was amazing fun while it lasted. And when Akio came back to Toyota Japan in 2000, joining the board of directors, he saw the massive difference between where Toyota was heading and where his heart wanted them to go. His heart said, no more boring cars, but he wasn't in a position to do anything about it. He was just a single cog in a big machine. And as Toyota continued phasing out their sports cars, focusing on maximizing efficiency of the Corollas and Camrys and developing new SUVs for the American market, Akio sat back and just watched. Well, that's not totally true. He and a group of his car-crazed friends at Toyota started a website. Basically a place where you could look up car specs and even shop for parts, and it was called Gazoo.com. Yes, Gazoo like Gazoo Racing, aka GR, the badge that lives on every sports car Toyota sells today, and the name of their in-house motorsports team, but I'll explain how we got there later. What you need to know for now is that Akio bided his time and helped Toyota grow during the 2000s. Because whether we like it or not, this new boring Toyota ideology was massively successful for them. From 2000 to 2008, Toyota increased their global sales by over 50%. They were now the biggest automaker in the world, selling over 500,000 more cars than even General Motors. And then the recession happened.
Great turmoil in the financial markets.
1 million homeowners are in danger of losing their homes.
We cannot simply stand by and watch this industry collapse.
Now, I swear to God, I've talked about the '08 financial crisis on this channel more than probably most economics professors. That and the '70s oil crisis. But here's the big thing to know. When things started to look bleak for every single automaker, Toyota took their trouble and made it double with their infamous unintended acceleration controversy. But believe it or not, they later committed an act that was almost as unjustifiable. An act that I still haven't forgiven them for to this very day. In a move that can only be described as a personal attack, when Toyota introduced Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in 2019, it only worked when you plugged it in directly. Cables? In this day and age, disgusting. And while they may have fixed this for their later models, for people who are still stuck tethered, there is finally a solution. The wireless CarPlay and Android Auto adapter from Quadlock. They say greatness comes in all shapes and sizes, but mine I've found are often in dongle form. So now I just plug in my Quadlock adapter, pair my phone to it, and Toyota's premature mistake of an infotainment system is now up to my standard. Wirelessly connected with no additional latency. And once it's set, I don't ever have to mess with it. It automatically connects every time I start up my car. Of course, for the cars of mine that don't have screens, which is most of them, I always have my Quadlock phone case and the signature twist lock mount. So now I'm set for life. Toyota, on the other hand, well, they're still in some trouble. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and the #1 car brand in the world was now getting dragged by the press all over the world. And in this time of crisis, Toyota decided they needed to go back to their roots. It was time the Toyota family ruled once again. So in 2009, Akio Toyoda was promoted to president and CEO of Toyota Motor Corporation, and he hit the ground running. He went in front of the US Congress and told them he was taking personal accountability for any issues with Toyota cars. My name is on every car, he said, and he made public the Toyota company philosophy of Genshi Genbutsu, a phrase that meant go and see for yourself, a commitment that he and the Toyota team would go and examine any and all problems directly on site. No more letting things get lost in middle management. Change at Toyota would come from everyone, even the executives, getting their hands dirty. And Akio may have not liked Toyota's new boring but reliable persona, but he certainly wasn't gonna sacrifice their image of bulletproof reliability either. And this is where Akio developed his second key philosophy. Roads build people, and people build cars. Now, that might sound kind of confusing at first, but let me explain. Toyota needed a new focus on rigorous testing to keep quality high in the wake of the unintended acceleration drama. And where and how you test a car is important, but who tested them was also a critical factor here. If you wanted to find the limitations of your hybrid battery, the engineers themselves must test the cars in challenging drive cycles, extreme temperatures. If you want to test the durability of your truck, then the engineers should take it off-road and tow stuff for 1,000,000 miles. And if you wanted to build the best sports car, then the entire team, including the engineers, should be driving them on the road and track. But of course, this was 2009, and Toyota didn't make any sports cars at the time, or did they? You see, Toyota was in the late stages of developing the Lexus LFA, a project that Akio himself led strategy on since 2002. It was Akio's decision to dump the aluminum design in favor for the advanced carbon fiber reinforced polymer monocoque. And it was Akio in the driver's seat when the LFA prototype hit the 24 hours of the Nürburgring in 2009. But he wasn't there as Akio Toyoda. He was there as Morizo, his alter ego that he raced under, his own masked master driver. And their team name, Gazoo Racing, a callback to the little website passion project that Akio and his team made back in 2000. Yes, the CEO of Toyota, alongside his engineers and test drivers, raced at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring to help develop their new sports car. Because the roads build the people, and the people build the cars. It was an unheard way of doing things. And while the self-proclaimed title of master driver is a little bit cringe, Akio's record as a driver was actually pretty decent for an amateur. He trained under Hiromu Naruse, Toyota's actual in-house factory driver, rest in peace. And it was with him that Akio had been racing Toyota Altezas since 2007. And when the production LFA was ready, Akio raced that in 2010 and 2011, with them even winning their class in 2010. The CEO of Toyota has a Nürburgring 24-hour win in an LFA. It's a crazy thing to say out loud. But okay, that was the LFA. It was a supercar that sells for $1 million now. And despite being my favorite car ever made, I've never even sat in one, let alone driven one. And just like for most people, making history videos on YouTube isn't gonna make me the $1 million needed to own one. But you see, Akio knew this. Well, not the stuff about me being broke, but he knew that the LFA served only to be a halo car, a poster on the bedroom wall. The car that he really wanted to build, a car that would be a gateway into the world of modifications, motorsports, a car that made me fall in love with driving, well, that was in the works, and was called the 86. What started as the FT86 concept in 2009 had evolved into the Toyota-Subaru partnership project that became the Scion FRS Subaru BRZ Toyota GT86 twins. And guess who was racing one in 2012? Akio Toyoda. Once again, the roads build the people and the people build the cars. Akio was determined to develop the new 86 twins where sports cars should be on track. That way, the people who were designing the car got to see exactly how their creation would hold up to the harshest of race environments. They got to see firsthand how a suspension change affected balance, how changing an engine map affected drivability and corner exit, how enjoyable it was to drive a car at the limit of grip. No more just taking a test driver's word at face value. And as Gazoo Racing grew to become Toyota's main motorsports entity, what they learned in the rigors of racing was immediately passed into Toyota's engineering philosophy. And you know who was racing an 86 at the same time as Akio? Me! Yes, I had a very hail-damaged 2013 Scion FRS that my brother and I got for an absolute steal, and I beat that car within an inch of its life. I won autocrosses in it, I did my first track days in it, I drifted it, and oh boy, did I modify it. This car let me explore all the different avenues of the car world. It was my faithful companion in figuring out what sort of car enthusiast I was. And when I crashed that thing in the rain a few years later, you know what I did? I bought another one, and I did all those same things again, except for crashing it. I didn't crash the second one. The 86 twins were a global success, not just in sales, but in reinvigorating a dying car community worldwide. Sure, they had their downsides, like FA20s that blew up if you looked at them wrong, but the car overall was a triumphant return to the simple, balanced, rear-wheel drive sports cars of old. Something that really hadn't existed outside of the Miata in years, and certainly not with a Toyota badge on the front. Toyota had really made a car that appealed to every facet of car enthusiast. With this winning notch in the belt complete for Toyota, it was time to move on to the next sports car, the Supra. And this is where Akio continued to leverage his third key factor, strategic pragmatism. Just like the 86 before it, the Supra was built in collaboration with another manufacturer, this time BMW. Now, did Toyota have enough money to develop these cars themselves? Yeah, probably. But partnering with other automakers was an important part of keeping the right balance between enthusiast freedom and business practicality. Toyota was still the world's biggest automaker after all, a massive company that was still producing mass market cars that were first and foremost practical and reliable. Akio might seem like a chill dude, but he wasn't some rebel that was gonna blow up the entire company to make a couple sports cars. His approach was always to find a way to keep the fun going while also keeping the Corolla cash machine going brrr. But Subaru was one thing. They were a Japanese company with years-long ties to Toyota. Toyota owned a third of Subaru's parent company, for Pete's sake. BMW, though, that was a different beast entirely. Many people initially saw it as working with the enemy. Sure, BMW made plenty of sports cars, but they were generally expensive to buy and even more expensive to maintain when they inevitably sprung 6 to 8 oil leaks or randomly exploded a crank pulley. It was the opposite of Toyota reliability, and working with them on the Supra, the car known for being completely bulletproof reliable, it was a travesty. It was a betrayal. But do you really think that Akio Toyoda, now with decades of experience, all these ultra-focused philosophies, didn't see those same issues? The engineering team for the Supra, led by Tetsuya Tada, the same chief engineer that developed the 86 twins, was hyper-focused on making sure that the Supra's BMW heart would hold up to the Toyota way. Now, I made a whole video about the entire Supra story back when the Supra came out, which you would have seen if you were subscribed, but if you're not, then you should subscribe now and watch that video to learn the truth about the BMW Supra. But in a nutshell, Toyota spent a lot of time and a lot of money making sure that BMW's technology, supply chain, and engineering were good enough for the Supra. Hell, they would take individual bolts out of the B58 inline 6 and stress test them to make sure that they were up to the same standard as what came out of their factories in Japan. And in the end, we got the BMW Z4 and Mark V Toyota Supra, a car that has proven not only to be tremendously reliable, but also, just like the Mark IV Supra before it, a powerhouse of a platform. People are making 700-800 horsepower with bolt-ons and tunes. Mark V Supras are raced everywhere from drag to drift and even the official Gazoo Racing GT4 program. And guess who drove the Supra at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in 2019? Akio Toyoda. In the end, the US market Mark V Supra outsold the Mark IV Supra's entire run in just 3 years. And in the last 6 years that it's been in production, it has sold twice as much as the Mark IV. But despite how good the BMW partnership may have been, there was always this lingering thought in every Toyota fan's head. I wish there was a fully Toyota sports car out there. No more spun rod bearings because of Subaru or having to listen to the BMW chime every time I open the door. And actually, Akio kind of felt the same way. Akio also loved the odd rally stage too. So can you guess what he greenlighted next? Gazoo Racing had been competing in the World Rally Championship since 2017, and when it came time to homologate a car for the series, Akio knew that this time they needed to stay in-house. But this was at a time when Subaru had given up on the STI, when Ford had left the Focus RS behind, but it didn't matter for Toyota. So in 2020, the GR Yaris was born, and this was Toyota's craziest creation yet. A 3-door hatchback with an inline 3-cylinder engine boosted to high heaven to make 300 horsepower. Oh yeah, and a fully bespoke all-wheel drive system with the ability to send most of the power to the rear wheels. All in a package that weighed 2,800 pounds. It was a rally rocket that harked back to the famous Celica GT4, and it was just as much fun to drive. Oh yeah, and look who's racing one at Rally Japan, Morizo, the master driver himself. Of course, it was available everywhere except the US and Canada because there was no Yaris here. So, to alleviate that, Toyota took all the GR Yaris goodies and smashed it into the Corolla hatch. And this thing wasn't just another Corolla. Other brands might be teasing track specials that are basically decals and carbon trim, but Toyota actually took the Corolla, tore it down to a skeleton, and rebuilt it meaner with the 300 horsepower inline 3, massive Alcon brakes, and about 100 miles of structural adhesive. And tell me if you heard this before. Guess who was in the driver's seat of the hydrogen-powered GR Corolla in the Super Taikyu Race Series? Yep, the big man, Akio himself. Every single new sports car from Toyota saw the same formula of the entire team driving the cars as intended and then using those findings to further develop the platform. And in that development, there was something really special, something that Toyota has over almost every other manufacturer, their fourth key ingredient, Kaizen, or continuous improvement. You see, every manufacturer updates their cars. Mid-cycle refreshes after a couple years, full generation changes after 5, 6, 7, Well, everyone except Nissan. But Toyota and Gazoo Racing have taken the concept of Kaizen and applied it to their sports cars in a much more aggressive way. Take the GR Corolla, for example. The standard car was released as a 2023 model year. And then the 2024, the very next year, got updates in the steering rack and the rear subframe to sharpen the handling. And then in 2025, it saw an updated front fascia with a new sub radiator, redesigned dampers, sway bars for better rotation, an engine tune with more torque, and an optional automatic transmission if that was your vibe. Okay, sure, that's a lot for a car's third year on market, but then in 2026, the GR team decided to continue their development even further based off of what they learned in Super Taikyu Racing. They stiffened the chassis even more, redesigned the air intake system, and even redesigned the variable all-wheel drive system. These are no small feats, and certainly far more engineering dollars than almost any other mainstream brand spends on year-over-year improvements of a sports car. And it's not just the Corolla. Toyota recently had us out to Sonoma Raceway to drive the entire GR lineup. And not only did we get to drive the newest cars in the lineup, Toyota made sure there were various model years of every car just so we could compare the updates and give our feedback to the engineers. The GR Supra, which evolved from 335 horsepower at launch to 382, then given a manual transmission, and in its latest year given revised suspension tuning and an alignment to finally calm down the short wheelbase twitchiness that was always the Achilles heel of that launch car. Of course, this is also the last year for the Supra. When we first spoke to Tada-san 6 years ago now, he said that 2025 would be the end of the Mark V's journey, which now makes me pretty sad actually. I've been a Supra fanboy since birth. I've had the pleasure of driving, owning, and building a lot of Supras over the years, and when the Mark V Supra came out in 2019, I bought one. Not new, I couldn't afford it at the time. I bought my friend Jackie's Supra after he had a bit of an unfortunate incident at M1 Concourse. And I rebuilt it with my friends. I daily drove it, I tuned it, I tracked it, I autocrossed it, and now, 80,000 miles and 6 years later, I still have it. My wife drives it. Proof that the Toyota reliability still shines through even with a BMW badge on the engine. So this new Supra Final Edition feels not just like a farewell, but also proof that Toyota fought to give us a 6-cylinder rear-drive manual car in 2026, something Porsche would probably charge you 6 figures for if they even let you spec it. And of course, we can't forget the GR86, the second generation of that first Gazoo Racing project, which over the years gained Brembo brakes, Sachs dampers, updated electronic power steering, a remapped engine. And in a time when a new sports car costs 50 grand before you even tick a box, Toyota left this little yellow coupe here like a time capsule. It's light, it's rear-wheel drive, supremely balanced, and it's cheap enough to actually dream about it. And it reminds me that there's still a way in for the next generation of car enthusiasts. Kaizen is the cornerstone of Toyota's commitment to the sports car. No reusing a platform for 20 years like some competitors or waiting a full life cycle for a single update. Toyota, under Akio's leadership, has made sure that their sports cars are always the best their engineers can make them year over year. And it's this philosophy combined with the other three that keeps me optimistic for a future full of sports cars. Because nowadays, the world of car news is constantly barraged with weekly changing government mandates, 50% price hikes for Porsche's 5,000-pound hybrid M5s, and this constant fear that the walls are closing in on people who love cars. When I take a look at Toyota right now, it seems like they're holding down the fort for car lovers. Sure, Honda makes the Type R, Hyundai makes the Elantra N, and those are amazing cars too, no doubt. But Toyota is the only one that sells 4 different sports cars, each serving a different purpose and all at reasonable price points. Sure, they may not be the best in their respective class, and I'm not saying they are, but even the fact that they exist is proof that other manufacturers can do much more for car enthusiasts too. And the crazy part is, there's more to come. There are rumors of a Toyota sports car partnership with Mazda, maybe for a 3rd Gen 8.6, maybe for something else, but whatever it is, it's probably gonna drive really good. There have been rumbles of an MR2 successor, adding another new platform to the lineup, and of course, there is the very exciting, very camouflaged GR GT3 prototype running around, a potential twin-turbo V8 homologation supercar designed for Toyota to compete in GT3 racing. which might hit the streets as the Lexus LFR. Not quite an LFA successor, but a car made in the same vision of building a uniquely Toyota supercar. Sure, that one we probably won't be able to afford, but it's the fact that Toyota is willing to build a car to go up against the likes of Porsche and Ferrari, all while still making a GR86 for the rest of us. I can't help but be optimistic that this LFR, alongside the 86, the GR Yaris and Corolla, an MR2 maybe, perhaps even a 6th generation Supra, means that there will be plenty of drivers' cars hitting showroom floors for years to come. And it's all in large part thanks to proper car enthusiasts like Akio Toyoda proving that car makers can indeed make money while still taking a chance on making exciting cars for regular people like you and me. This might just be the precipice of another sports car golden era. There are a lot of cool cars out these days and more to come. And I, for one, am planning on enjoying everything that comes out of it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, then you should subscribe and watch this video on how BMW M has lost its way. We've also got an affiliate link to Auto Tempest down below the like button where you can find your own 86 Supra or GR Corolla for a great price. Seriously, it's the only place you should be looking for a car. I'll see you in the next one.